All right, so welcome back. Today we cover six current affairs, sharp, relevant, and exam ready. Let's go. Now, Iris Dena, IOR Maritime Surveillance. Now, ISRO has successfully deployed Iris Dena, a dedicated maritime surveillance satellite for the Indian Ocean region. The satellite carries advanced synthetic aperture radar (SAR) and electro-optical sensors capable of detecting and tracking ships in all weather conditions day and night. Now, Iris Dena provides real-time data on Chinese naval movements in the Indian Ocean, identifying submarine deployments, monitoring port activities in Pakistan and Sri Lanka, and tracking commercial shipping. The satellite feeds directly into the India's National Command Control Communication and Intelligence Network. Now, Iris Dena fills a critical intelligence gap. Previously, India depended on periodic data from commercial satellites and American intelligence sharing for maritime domain awareness. Now, India has dedicated continuous surveillance of the Indian Ocean. The satellite orbits specifically to maximize coverage of choke points like Strait of Hormuz, Malacca Strait, Bab al Mandeb, and the 10-degree channel. Now, China maintains persistent naval presence in the Indian Ocean through its anti piracy patrols, submarine deployments, and port access in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Djibouti. Now, reliance on US intelligence for maritime surveillance created dependence. America could share or withhold data based on interest. Now, Iris Dena provides India independent surveillance capability, not subject to foreign approval or class denial. Sorry, access denial. Now, Iris Dena, which is Indian regional navigation satellite dedicated to Indian Ocean maritime surveillance. Indian Ocean region, maritime zone critical for India's trade, energy, and security interest. Maritime surveillance is continuous monitoring of naval and commercial vessel movements. Strategic autonomy is independent decision making capability without foreign intelligence dependence. Chinese Navy tracking is real time monitoring of planned vessels in Indian Ocean. And space based intelligence is satellite reconnaissance for military and strategic purposes. Then we have the Rajya Sabha elections opposition unity test. Elections for 56 Rajya Sabha seats across 15 states concluded with results showing significant opposition gains. The ruling coalition's seats dropped from 112 to 98 in the 245-member House, losing majority. Opposition parties coordinated candidate selection, preventing vote splits. Congress withdrew candidates in the Uttar Pradesh favoring Samajwadi Party. Regional parties reciprocated in the other states. Cross voting by ruling party MLAs in the three states handed victories to opposition candidates. Now, Rajya Sabha elections use proportional representation by state legislature. Each state's allocation is based on population. UP has 31 seats, Maharashtra 19, Tamil Nadu 18, while small states have 1 to 3 seats. The 56 seats up for election represents one-fourth of the total Rajya Sabha strength. Unlike Lok Sabha, where ruling party has clear majority, Rajya Sabha represents federal balance, where state government's party composition determines upper house composition. Now, opposition gains reflect state election results from past year, where regional parties won or strengthened positions. Karnataka, Telangana, Himachal Pradesh changed governments from BJP to opposition parties. Now, these state governments changes now translate into Rajya Sabha representation shifts. Losing Rajya Sabha majority forces ruling party into build coalition building and negotiation rather than numerical dominance. Legislation requiring Rajya Sabha passage, like GST amendments, recognition of states, judicial appointments, now needs opposition support. Now, Rajya Sabha elections again, indirect elections by state legislature for upper house seats, federal dynamics, interaction between center and state governments affecting national politics, opposition unity, coordinated strategy among non ruling parties for electoral gains, cross voting, MLAs voting against their party's official candidates, proportional representation, electoral system allocating seats based on vote share, and coalition politics, governance requiring multi party cooperation and consensus building. Then we have anti conversion bill, religious freedom debate. A state government has passed an anti conversion law requiring individuals to obtain district magistrate approval 60 days before changing religion. The law mandates police verification of conversion request, creates offense of forced conversion with 10-year imprisonment. and places burden of proof on the accused to demonstrate conversion was voluntary. Religious organizations must register all conversion activities with authorities. Violations result in loss of government benefits and cancellation of ration cards for converted individuals. Now, Article 25 guarantees the right to freely profess, practice, and propagate religion. The Supreme Court in Stanislaw versus Madhya Pradesh 1977 held that propagation includes right to persuade others, and conversion is an individual's fundamental right. Now, the law's presumption is troubling. It assumes conversions are forced unless proven otherwise. This reverses the constitutional assumption that individuals exercise rights freely. The burden of proof on accused violates criminal law principle. Prosecution must prove guilt, not accused prove innocence. Now, the law affects religious minorities disproportionately. Christians and Muslims are primarily accused of forced conversions, while conversions to Hinduism face no scrutiny. Now, this creates unequal treatment, violating Article 14. Now, the registration requirement allows state monitoring and potential harassment of minority religious organizations. If we see the anti-conversion law, which is legislation restricting religious conversion through registration and approval requirements. Religious freedom is constitutional right to choose, practice, and propagate religion. Article 25 is fundamental right to freedom of conscience and free profession of religion. Prior approval is government permission required before exercising constitutional right. Forced conversion is alleged coercion to change religion, criminalized with harsh penalties and constitutional rights, fundamental freedoms guaranteed under the Part 2 of the Constitution. Next, we have the maritime law. So, the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea ruled against China's 9-line claim in the South China Sea, holding it violates UN clause provisions on the exclusive economic zones. China rejected the ruling, claiming historical rights override international law. Meanwhile, India faces EEZ disputes with Bangladesh in Bay of Bengal and with Maldives in Lakshadweep region. The tribunal's China ruling strengthens India's position that international law, not power politics, should govern maritime boundaries. Now, China claims almost the entire South China Sea based on historical 9-line shown in Chinese maps. India's EEZ covers 2.37 million square kilometers containing valuable resources, oil, gas, polymetallic nodules, and fisheries. The UN clause framework protects these rights and against encroachment. Bangladesh tried claiming continental shelf beyond 200 nautical miles, encroaching on India's zone. The tribunal awarded India most contested rights. Chinese rejection of tribunal rulings exemplifies tension between international law and real politics. China argues that powerful nations are not bound by international institutions they consider Western dominated. Now we have to understand that UN clause is United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, governing maritime rights and boundaries. Then we have the exclusive economic zone, 200 nautical mile zone, where coastal state has resource exploitation rights. 9-line, China's unilateral claim over South China Sea rejected by international law. Maritime disputes, conflicts over boundaries, resources, and navigation rights. International law, treaties and customary rules binding nations to specific conduct, and South China Sea, contested maritime region where China's claimed conflict with UN clause. Then we have the India's West Asia stakes, multi-dimensional, right? So as West Asia conflict intensifies, India's stakes become increasingly visible. The government conducted emergency talks with all regional powers, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iran, Israel, and Turkey, attempting to maintain balanced relations. India abstained from UN Security Council resolution condemning Israeli strikes on Iran, drawing criticism from both sides. Simultaneously, India negotiated oil supplies from alternative sources while managing 8.5 million diaspora evacuation logistics. The crisis exposes India's complex web of competing interests in the region. Now, India's largest overseas population is in the Gulf. Construction workers, nurses, engineers, domestic workers earning livelihoods and sending remittances, supporting millions of families back home. India sources 60% of crude oil from Gulf countries, with shipments transiting through Strait of Hormuz. War has closed this route indefinitely. Alternative suppliers in US, Russia, West Africa exist, but at higher cost and longer shipping times. Now the oil shock affects everything. Transportation costs increase, power generation becomes expensive, fertilizer production slows, and inflation surges. Now India maintains strategic partnership with Israel, defense technology, Iran, Chabar port access, Saudi Arabia and UAE, energy plus investments, and Turkey, growing trade. Now, these relationships are now mutually contradictory. Israel demands India support its war effort. Iran expects solidarity against American Israeli aggression. Gulf states want India to condemn Iran. and Turkey seeks Indian backing for its position. West Asia stakes, again, India's multiple interest in Middle East requiring careful balancing. Oil security, reliable access to affordable petroleum for economic stability. Indian diaspora, 8.5 million citizens working in the Gulf countries sending remittances. Geopolitical balancing, maintaining relations with competing or hostile powers simultaneously. Gulf relations, strategic partnership with Saudi Arabia, UAE, and other GCC nations, and strategic interest is long term national priorities in regional conflicts and relationships. Then we have the Aizwal rail freight, a northeast milestone. Now, the first freight train reached Aizwal, Mizoram, from completion of the broad gauge rail link from Assam. The 51-kilometer Bairabi Sairang section, the final stretch connecting Mizoram to India's rail network, was completed after 15 years of construction through difficult Himalayan terrain. The freight service will transport goods currently trucked at 3 to 4 times higher cost. Passenger services are scheduled to begin by June 2026. Mizoram becomes the last northeast state to receive rail connectivity. Now, Mizoram remained isolated from rail network since independence due to difficult terrain, insurgency, and low economic priorities. Goods transported depended entirely on trucks, navigating narrow mountains roads during limited weather windows. Now, Mizoram shares international borders with Bangladesh and Myanmar, but no functional trade routes due to lack of border infrastructure and Myanmar's instability. The state depends entirely on Assam for access to rest of India. Now, the rail connection is part of broader Northeast infrastructure push, including highways, power grids, and internet connectivity. The strategy treats Northeast as bridge to Southeast Asia rather than isolated periphery. However, implementation remains slow. The Iswal project took 15 years against planned 5 years. Cost overruns, terrain difficulties, and insurgency related disruptions plague Northeast projects. The Iswal success demonstrates that sustained commitment can overcome obstacles, but similar projects in Nagaland and Manipur remain incomplete. Northeast connectivity, again, infrastructure linking northeastern states with mainland and international neighbors. Aizwal Railway, new rail connection to Mizoram capital after 15-year connection. Freight transport, movement of goods by rail, reducing cost versus road trucking. Infra development, building roads, railways, and connectivity in underdeveloped regions. Act East policy, strategy engaging Southeast Asia economically using Northeast as a bridge. Landlocked states, regions without a sea access, depending on neighbors for trade routes. So that's it for today's session. Stay consistent, stay sharp. See you tomorrow. Thank you.